mate wouldn't sit you down and go, 4.4 million potatoes are wasted every day. He'll go, look, you make a jacket potato and eat it. And then they were like, you've been stealing from us. And I was like, take my clothes off, put a pair of shoes on, wear a cape, turn up for 45 minutes an hour, go home, sleep, wake up in the afternoon, and just repeated it. And it was just nuts. Like the first trial shift I went in, one person got sacked who had been there for 3 years on the spot. And I was like, and he was going out to people in KFC. I was like, don't do it, you're going to get fat. And I was like, funny. My role sounds like absolutely brilliant. I was called Nutritional Development Manager.
Well,
yeah, so I was like, yeah, I can have that. And I suppose where it all kind of come to a head, and it was my fault, and I don't really care now, but it was.
Martyn, how are you, mate?
I'm good.
How's 2024 been? It's the end of the year now. You can reflect. How's it been?
Oh, I actually had this conversation with my wife earlier. It was like the first 6 months were like slow, and then all of a sudden it was like summer, and then it's all gone. But it's been good. Yeah, it's been good. I had a beautiful little period in the summer where my wife took 3 months sabbatical, and we just went down to Cornwall.
Nice.
And we just chilled as a family. It was like our first sort of like dipping our toe into having a child on summer holidays. It was just like, oh God, how are we going to manage this? So yeah, it was cool. But yeah, it's uber stressful with the kids.
And a busy end to the year for you now?
Yeah, I mean,
Final stretch.
Final stretch. Yeah, you know, people always say that because it's like food and Christmas and all that.
Yeah.
They all get signed off so early.
Yeah.
That I'm just regurgitating content from last year and then just like replaying that, but then like piecing in new stuff. So continuity of my feed is awful. I've got a mullet now. Back then I had this big like nutty hairstyle. And they're all like, what's happened? And I'm like, nothing. It's like, you're all right. You look a bit mad. I'm like, it's a change of style, everyone. That's how you roll.
Well, look, mate, I'm excited to have you on the show today because we've got loads to talk about. Yeah. You've had a very interesting career and now obviously doing so much, particularly in the online space, which we'll get to. But to kind of kick things off, I wanted to understand like how life started for you. What was growing up like before you entered any professional kitchen of any sort? What was growing up like?
Oh, I always say this. It was amazing. Like, you know, we was quite fortunate. I say I'm not a middle class person, but like we had quite a nice upbringing. You know, like my mum and dad. My mum was a dentist and my dad was a teacher. And we always take the piss out of my dad saying that he's lived off my mum most of her life. But she you know, she was always working, had her own practice. You know, she worked in sort of like some big places, and it was nice. You know, played a lot of sport. You know, and the food thing, I suppose, kind of came in from one of my mum's friends, and she was like a home cook, and she was like came round, did these dinner parties, and I was always just fascinated by, you know, seeing things. You know, she would bring like a whole side of salmon and steam it in those old school like tins.
Yeah.
Like weird ingredients that were like black treacle, and I'm like, what is this? And you're like eating it, and you're like, this is disgusting. But it's like, you know, my brain would get all excited, and I think from that is where my food kind of like excitement came from. And we spent a lot of time out in France. Like my mum's side of the family, there was like 3 sisters, and they all their families were like, let's pitch in and buy a house. So we had this like farmhouse that was like a 2-3 bed house in the middle of nowhere. You know, they probably got it for like 100 grand. Yeah. And it was just like every time you go out, it was always doing work on it, you know. But we got exposed to just like French stuff, you know, like baguettes and butter and cheese.
Freshness as well.
Freshness, yeah. And just like living that like simple life. And me and my brother just used to like run around in fields, like looking at cows and, you know, running up and down the road going, this is amazing. Like, what are we doing? You know, going fishing and starting fires, you know, like proper kids. Yeah, that's the kind of thing we had most weekends. When we went
Is that kind of how you wanted to set up for your little boy as well? Like if you wanted to replicate that a little bit, you know, in some way?
Yeah. It's so funny. Like when I was coming over here, I was flicking through pictures and we went on a holiday last year and it was like the first time all of us had sort of like gone, for like years. And it made me just go, you know what? Money is great, but like, having money to give my child like the experiences that I want to give him is it's like my driver now. I don't, you know, the clothes I wear, they've been gifted. You know, I've got free pants, I've got free trousers. You know, I don't need to buy things for myself.
You're living.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you know, you always need that one thing that's going to keep you going, like give you that real impetus. And it's like, it's him now. So I just want to take him away. It's always experiences. Snowboarding is expensive, but we love it. And we want to drill it into him that he can go and do those things and have a good time. So yeah.
Amazing. And for you, like early years when you're a teenager growing up, Are you a goal setter? Did you know what you wanted to do? Were you a bit lost at that stage? Like, where were you?
Yeah, I was. I tell my son I'm the class clown. I still am, but like I was proper the class clown. Like, always got told off at school. I was pretty intelligent, like quite an academic person. I love maths and sort of all that kind of stuff, but was always in trouble. And then I got really told off actually, which was, I always think this is a bit of a breaker for me because I was really good at sport.
Right.
Like played county rugby, was like on the lines of doing good things. And then got sent off in a football match, stupidly, for like singing a song, and the ref didn't like it, so sent me off, right? This is so mad. It really triggers me.
I could tell.
And then the headmaster brought the whole team in, and he said, right, my mate Jamie and me, come to one side, and he was like, you're not allowed to do GCSE or A-level PE. No, you're not allowed to do A-level PE. And this was the point where you were like picking your future, right? So I was like, the fuck? Like what? From this one thing, and probably the back catalogue of all of me being a bellend at school, but but this one thing, I was like, sport was like a massive part of me, And I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, what do I choose? So I had to do art, graphics, theatre studies, and psychology. And I was like, I got a U in psychology because I never turned up because I was like, I just don't care enough. He was even my form tutor, and he was like, where were you today, Martyn? And I was like, I don't care. And he's like, yeah, fair enough. So art and graphics, that's kind of like where everything started going. And then theatre studies was just like, I had to tick a box. And I didn't want to do French, German, so it was theatre studies. So
did you enjoy the theatre study stuff? Because those that watch your content, there is a theatre to your content, which I personally love. But did you enjoy that when you were at school?
I did. I was always one of those people that was, like I said, like class clown, but also a complete lack of shame. Like I honestly, I'm not like arrogant in the way that I don't give a fuck about what people think about me. Yeah. But I'm just like, I am who I am. And like my mum was just like, it's so like nice that you're being you on camera. Because when I first started my channels, I was very kind of like, right, are people going to understand me? Because like my mates get me, and like people when I meet you get me. But like as soon as you put yourself out there to like thousands, millions of people, it's like,
and the feedback's immediate, right? If they think they're a knob.
Exactly, yeah. And it's sort of like, as you kind of like build your socials and people get you and people are like, oh, it is you. And you're like, yeah, it's me. I can't change.
Yeah.
I was putting on another character who wasn't me at the start.
Yeah.
So, I did like it. I did quite a lot of theatre. Like my ex-girlfriend's dad, he used to own a theatre or like run a theatre. And it was kind of like, I was my first kind of like, oh, do you want to go and do some theatre? I was like, what do you do? I was like, well, you just act. And I was like, what does that mean? And then that's where like most of my mates now are through that network. Yeah. Got quite a few friends who are actors, and directors and whatnot. Yeah. So, it was amazing. I love
creativity.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in a kitchen?
Again, I blame my mum.
Your poor mum.
I know. Well, I said, like, I always showed like an interest in food.
Right.
I loved it.
That's at home.
At home.
Predominantly,
yeah. Like, at school, I wasn't like interested in it, but I'd come home and, I'd watch Jamie Oliver and Ready Steady Cook. Like I was obsessed with Ready Steady Cook.
Really?
And I used to make like, bread and just make endless amounts of it. And my mum and dad would be like, oh, this is amazing. I never know where it went, but there was a lot of food waste, I guarantee, in that house. Or the ducks had them, But there was this point, I always remember, I went to this place called Biblos, which is like quite a weird place in Spain near, I think it's called Torremolinos or something.
In Spain?
In Spain, yeah. And because my mum was a dentist, she worked near this place that was called the Lemon Tree. And she said, oh, my son, he loves cooking. Can he come out and work there?
Yeah.
So we're on this family holiday, and I was shipped off every night. It was like doing a stage when I was like 14. And I was working in this kitchen in Spain, did like every night. And I was like, this is kind of...
Washing dishes? What were you doing?
I was cooking.
You were cooking?
I was like standing there. I was like, what do you want me to do? And they were like, I learned how to... It was proper 80s stuff. Like, it was just probably like, late 90s.
Yeah.
So it was like, did these things called cucumber bows that were like a chunk of cucumber. You cut them thin and then you turn them back on themselves. It was like a garnish. I was like, cool. But yeah, just like, it was like, this is kind of fun. It's like this mad...
Yeah.
Always remember reading Anthony Bourdain. It's like this mad family. And I was like, you spend so much time with these people.
Yeah.
And these people were just ratting. And I was like, this is kind of fun. Yeah. So when I got back, when I was 15, I worked in a restaurant. It was my first proper job.
Like, you came back and you got the bug. You were kind of the bug.
Yeah.
You were like,
I was like,
there's something there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mum.
Yeah, cheers, Mum.
You've got a free holiday, but thanks.
Well, yeah. And I kept blaming her all through my life until about 30-something, where I was just like, you know what? Like, all that stuff that I was doing is all right.
Yeah.
I worked at this place called Goose Fat and Garlic in my hometown, and it was like weekends. And, my mum tells this story that I was doing pot wash, and then one of the people who was like the commie chefs doing starters. There's a tiny kitchen, slipped, hurt her back, and then couldn't do the shift. And I was like, well, I can do a bit of cooking. Let me jump in. So I remember there was a smoked duck dish that was just like a smoked duck cold, just slicing that with a salad. And I was doing that. And then I was like, it's all right. And then I, do you want to come back and do another shift? And then it kind of like every weekend I was just there as like a general dog's body, just like helping out. I loved it. I mean, I was like 15. I was getting paid, I don't know, like £8 an hour, but then like 100 quid in tips. I used to go to like a local market, Northfield Market, with my mum and buy like £100 worth of penny sweets. It should be like, that's not a good way to spend your money. And I was just like, Mum, this is my money. I always remember, it was so weird, but yeah.
That first experience of being in a kitchen, obviously maybe when you actually started cooking.
Yeah.
What was it about it that you found so like alluring and attractive? Was it just the intensity, the camaraderie? Like what was it about it?
I think it was the intensity.
Yeah.
I'm quite like an impulsive person, and like when I'm in a situation, I'm like I really soak in like all of the vibes and how it's going. And as soon as like, you know, service would start, it's such a unique experience that everyone's like had this mad rush. Then there's this moment of calm, service starts, and it's almost like, right. And then the tickets come through, and it's just, no one talks, but they talk. It's very weird. Like, yes, chef, no chef. Like, 2 minutes on that, 3 minutes on that. And it's just like this weird buzz. And like hours go before you've even got like, you're like, fuck, that's 4 hours of a shift done.
Yeah.
It was just crazy. And I just really dug in. I kind of, when you were a young chef, like burning yourself. I know it sounds weird, but like being quite cool. You know, like going like, oh God, look at that burn on my arm. Or getting something out of the oven and you got all these like burn marks. You know, that was like part and parcel of it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just kind of like, coming home and being like, you know what, I've done a shift. And it was cool.
I guess also for like you at school where like the academic side, obviously you didn't have a huge interest in apart from sports stuff.
Yeah.
But then being in an environment where you kind of feel very comfortable, but you're happy to work. Like you might not have cared about psychology, but like you're happy to do a 4-hour shift in a kitchen, sweating your ass off. Like that balance, did you find a lot of comfort in that, if it makes sense?
I think so. I mean, yeah, when I was at school, like all the way through, I was kind of like always doing bits and pieces of work. And mates had plans for the future, and I was like in the moment. I was just like, I'm living with my mum and dad, making a couple of quid, you know. I had mates that left school at 16 and started their own businesses like building, carpentry, you know, the proper like lad jobs. And they're still doing it now, and they've got like successful companies. I've been doing it for 20 odd years. Yeah. Whereas me, I was just like still earning absolutely nothing, but just like going, this is all right. But social stuff is like the worst, especially with cooking. Well, because you're working all the hours when everyone else is being social. So mates are going out when you're like 16, 17 and they're all out on the lash and you're like, oh, I want to be with them, but you're working. Yeah. And then you go out stinking of fish and see them when everyone's leathered. It's just, it's not a very good thing for the...
Not a good vibe.
Not good for the soul.
So how long were you at that restaurant for?
It was only a couple of months, and it's really funny. Again, my mum, they moved house recently. They sent a box of all of the stuff that like we've been getting on, and there was a resignation letter that I'd sent to the people at the Goose Fat and Garlic. Head chef was Toby, can't remember the owner, but we'd been on this on a shift, and it was the first time I'd done a double shift. So like Saturday, you know, you'd get in the morning, do prep, Sunday service in the evening. And I remember I was hungry, so I had a chicken breast and some ice cream.
From the
kitchen. Yeah. They were like, you know, help yourself to what you want. And I wasn't going to take like an expensive bit of fish or whatever. Yeah. I was like a chicken breast and some ice cream, like as anyone would. And then they were like, you've been stealing from us. And I was like, I am probably the most honest black and white person you'll ever know. I'll tell you if I'd nicked something. Like, I'm that stupid. And and then they were like, no, this is really out of order. Caused like a really weird atmosphere. And then I said to my mum, I was like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like quite cutthroat with people. Like if they fuck me off, they're like, got one chance and they're out. Like I'm a bit black and white like that. Like, move on. So I said to my mum, what do I do? And she was just like, well, whatever you feel like. So I was just like, okay, fuck this. I'm done. I'm out of here. And then just wrote this letter going, I feel really upset. I feel really sad the way you treated me. I only took one chicken breast and a piece of ice cream. And I was just done. And
how old were you at the time?
Probably like 16.
I mean, it's quite a big deal at that age. Yeah. Like when you cared, you had like a passion for it. Yeah. Probably working fucking hard. Like, and then it's sort of thrown in your face a little bit. When you're younger, it feels like a massive like storm in the teeth.
Yeah, exactly. And I was only doing weekends, but I was like giving up quite a lot. Like, you know, at that time of your life, like Friday nights, Saturday nights, you know, your mates are all going out. And
again, you know, big part of your social life.
Yeah. And I was just like, you know, I don't really need this.
So then you moved into catering, right?
Yeah.
So bopped around trying to get some experience in that.
Yeah, so there was lots of, I suppose, I didn't have any experiences in like, you know, a degree or a piece of paper or a certificate to say I could cook, but I knew I could cook. Yeah. So I started working for a private catering company who just did like, very basic weddings, private dinner parties that weren't fancy, but were just like, 12 people want to have someone come around to cook a barbecue.
Oh, nice.
So you'd like prep all the food, go to the events, and then cook the food, serve it, and then disappear. And I was just like, oh, this is a different world, But again, it's like all those people want to have a party on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and then you're like, here we go again, like, endless times off. And then I was getting a bit older, and you were partying a bit more. Like, you definitely missed a few shifts, and then got sick.
Really?
Yeah.
What was different from the catering side to the restaurant side? Which one did you kind of prefer?
It was a mixture of the two, really. But I suppose with the catering company, you got a bit of both, because you did long prep days, maybe the day before, where you were like, marinating all the meats or like prepping big stews or whatnot. And then the next day you would go and do the events. It was kind of just like, you'd have a mixture of the two. And you felt a bit more like you had a bit more control, because you'd be sent as the head chef on a job.
Yeah.
Although you're not a head chef, but you're the one that was taking control of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're working with like waiters and that were like super young, maybe 15, 16, and you're like 18, and you're like, I'm in control of you? Like, this is bad. But no, it was cool. And, you saw another side. And I suppose we'll touch on this later, but it's like a lot of chefs message me now. And I'm like, there is so much opportunity everywhere in catering. You don't have to go, I'm going to work in a restaurant. You can go and work at a catering company. You can go do, contract catering for like 3 days and have 4 days off. Yeah, you can go and set up a street food stall. There is so much flex in it, and especially now. I suppose there's bigger opportunities that are open. So.
Yeah. Were you looking for, did you have a goal in mind at this point? Sort of 16, 18, it's when all your mates are goal setting. Were you just trying to get through life based?
I had no real plan of a career. I was jealous of friends that, like, my mate Luke went to med school, like when he was 18, did his A-levels, straight into med school, had a plan. I was like, how do you know what you want to do? But he knew what he wanted to do from like a young age. And I was always like, is everyone meant to have this? Like, as I said, my mates went off at 16 to go be builders. And there was me, like, just bumbling around. I was just like, I'm working in places. I don't
feel a bit lost, like.
Yeah, massively. And like I said, I blamed my mum for like going, you love food. And I was like, is this going to be my life? Like, I look at chefs that I was working with that were like, my age now.
Yeah.
Like, stressed the eyeballs, working 15, 16-hour days. I was like, is this going to be me forever? Like, just working in restaurants?
Yeah. Were you a bit worried about staying with it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I loved it, but I saw a very short time that I would love it. And I don't think I've ever been one of those people that's like, I'm the best. So I never had that strive to be like, right, I'm going to own my own restaurant, and I'm going to be a head chef, and I'm going to have a big team. It was never something that I ever really wanted. So I was always like, what do I do? Like, am I just going to sort of like, bumble around? And
because then you went to Australia.
Yeah.
And was that a bit of like a runaway?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My brother went. My brother's older than me.
Right.
He went, and he did Australia for like 6 months. And then he came back to Thailand, and we met each other in Thailand. My mum was like, go and see him for 2 weeks. I had, like, as you do, an absolute reckless time. And then I was like, I think I want to do Australia. So I kind of saved a bit of cash. Was like, I'll bootstrap it and I'll go. And then, did 6 months in Australia. And again, it was, you find yourself in Australia. Like, I was I was always like me. I was always like the bubbly one. I could go anywhere on my own and make friends and chat. And then when I was out there, I was like, this is life. I loved it. But I was stupid with money. Like,
were you thinking about food? Were you thinking about what I've got to go back to?
Not so much, because
drunk all the time.
Thinking back now, like before I went out, I was working in restaurants, but I did a summer course in stunt and stage combat. I think it was. I always say it's E17, but it's not. E17 acting school.
I was meant to go there actually when I was a kid.
Yeah. So was I.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's where like Adele went and stuff, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think she came from E17. It's like the place where like theatre kids, because I was a bit of a theatre kid when I was
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's where like she went. I remember going for the walk around, and her face was just fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, literally every door had her face on it. I'm pretty sure it was where she went, or it was somewhere else. But sorry, carry on.
That's all right. No, but I did a summer course which was like 4 days stunt and stage combat, and I was like, this is me.
Stunt and stage combat.
Yeah. So it was like, so they basically taught you how to sword fight, how to take punches, how to stab people with like daggers and stuff on stage, how to take a kick to the face.
Wow.
And I was like, this is the nuts. Like, I was stopped from doing PE. I was quite a physical person. I was quite good at all of that.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is it. Like acting, I was doing a bit of like, I was like, this is my out. So then I auditioned for the full course, the 3-year stunt and stage combat course. And I was like, well, I've got to get in. I've done a summer course. The teachers know me. They said I was pretty good. So then we learned this fight. And then we did it.
Was that the audition?
Yeah, you learn a fight, like a fight sequence. Yeah. Then you had to do a monologue. I did the History Boys, one of the speech from the History Boys. Nice. Brilliant speech. All about war, but it was all about having sex with girls. And it was like...
Is that the film with James Corden?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like with the teacher who's
I think so.
a bit fruity, and then, they're all lads.
So, yeah.
It was this speech that was like, when you part the Western and Eastern Front, and then you get down the trenches, and it was all sort of like these innuendos. And I was like, better me. Anyway,
the sword fighting a bit of that.
Yeah, perfect. So I did that, and then at the end they were like, "Right, you're on the list to probably get into the course."
Right.
Our only feedback is you're too excitable. Normally, we take people that we need to eke out, but you're already up here. Like, what the fuck's going to happen to you if you get on the course? And I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I was like, "Right, fuck this. I'll go to Australia." And
so that they said no.
Well, they didn't say no at the time. They were like, because it was the audition phase. So then I went to Australia at the beginning of the year, so it would have been September start time.
Please.
So I was like, let's go, and then let's see what happens. So yeah, I went to Australia, and then got offered 2 things. Puppetry, which is, did you find anything on the internet?
The what? Oh, no, yeah, this is what I want to talk to you about. Yeah. So we'll come back to that.
So the story is, got offered that,
yeah,
and then also got offered E17 at the same time.
Right.
And I called my mum, and I was like, what should I do? And she went, do whatever you want to do. So I did that.
We'll come on to what that was in a second. But I guess at this point, because I know you now know you've got ADHD, right?
Yeah.
And I do too.
Undiagnosed, but everyone seems to diagnose me.
Definitely. I've been here for 5 minutes, 100%. But like at this point, like in your kind of career and stuff, like I remember when I was obviously growing up at similar ages, you kind of get thrown around and too excitable, etc. Were you aware of any of that stuff, or were you just a bit like, this is me, I'm just going to keep cracking on?
Yeah, like my mum was always like, you are who you are.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're a bit eccentric and a bit weird, me and my mates always used to go to charity shops and we bought like furry jackets and just wandered around the shops, and we were just a bit weird, because it was just who we were, and I never really questioned it. And all my mates were, I said, actor people, and they're all a bit flamboyant and a bit weird, and we didn't care.
Yeah.
So we were just part of that. And I think as soon as you step out of, say, your comfort zone, like your mates in your hometown, and then you go to uni or you go somewhere else, and you're like, fuck, I am a bit weird. Yeah. But I don't care.
It's just so nicer, because I think we're in a world now where everything's labelled and everything's kind of stuck on here. And when I was growing up, I was ADHD and then not, and then just like all these things, right? And at the same time, I was a bit like, I don't really care.
No.
But it's quite interesting to know, and it means you don't beat yourself up when you're maybe feeling a bit weird or you feel out of place.
Yeah.
But I love your approach where you're just like, and what? Keep cracking on.
Well, there is an amazing book called The Fuck It Therapy, and I've probably read like the first 3 pages, but it's very much like...
That's the most ADHD thing.
But you open it up and it's one of those books, like, I've got everything I want from it. It's like, I always just go, what is the worst that can happen? Like, my wife's like, how can you do live speaking? I'm like, I'm not going to die. Like, if I walk out there and I bumble my words, like, someone's not going to go, oh God, he's useless.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's me, like I could fluff my way for anything. Like, you go into a social environment where there's like 1,000 people in a room and you just walk in. It's like, there's no need to be embarrassed or weird. It's just like, fuck
it's
it.
going to happen.
And
that fuck it attitude kind of led you to take this offer that you had. So it's because not many people know about this, right? Like, no. It's relatively hidden away, like what you came back and did.
Yeah.
But tell me what you want to tell me about it, because I haven't been able to find much.
Well, that's the weird thing. Like, when I tell people, they don't believe me. And then I'm like, Google it. Google my name. And then something will come up, but it's very hidden.
Spent a long time making it short.
Yeah. Well, it's quite... I'll do like the whistle-stop story of it, because it's really funny. So basically, when I was at the theatre, like, as I said, my like, ex-girlfriend's dad looked after the theatre.
This is before Australia?
Before Australia.
Okay.
And, there was I was in a pantomime, so I was Buttons. And in the theatre that we was rehearsing, and then there was like shows that were going on at the time. And the show, Puppetry of the Penis, the 2 lads...
The what?
Puppetry of the Penis.
Okay.
Yeah, POTP, right? The 2 lads, Simon and Friendy, 2 Aussie blokes, absolutely fucking the nicest people ever. And the funniest point was, like, they were touring and they were coming to the theatre, and I was like, this is brilliant. Like, me and the boys used to, like, everyone's done it. Everyone's put their Johnson between their legs and pretended to be a girl. That's basically what they did, like loads of different tricks. So I saw them and I was like, guys, I can do one of the tricks. They were like, no fucking way, mate. And I was like, yeah. So like, how old was I? 18-year-old boy goes into the toilet with this like 40-year-old man. Both drop our trousers, do a trick. And he's like, right, yeah, this is how weird it gets, right? It was like, you have to come on stage and do this. And I was like,
That night?
Yeah, well, that night, it was like, yeah, mate, there's a point in the show where we say, can anyone do the burger? And I'm like, yeah, I can do it. You gotta laugh. It's so funny. So anyway.
So you're Buttons at this point. So everyone knows you as Buttons, but no.
This is where it gets really weird, right? So like the show is obviously like an 18+ show because it's like full on nudity. And then I go up there and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Don't worry about it. Like, you know, a bit set up, but kind of like whatever. So I get up on stage, do this thing. And then the next thing, they sign this book and they're like, get in touch if you're ever in Australia or send us an email. I didn't have an email at 18. You know, who has an email? So fast forward, I went to Australia, emailed them. It's just like, hello, mate. Like, I'm in Australia. I'm on my own. Just wondered where you were. It'd be great to catch up. Fucking no joke. Email comes back in 2 minutes. I'm sitting there on like Bebo. Email comes back. He's like, Martyn, we've been fucking looking for you. Where are you? And I was just like, oh, mate, I'm in Byron Bay. He's like, I'm at the Beachy in Byron Bay, which is like here to the main road. And I'm like, he's like, can you come and meet me? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I like literally walk down, meet Simon at the Beachy in Byron Bay. And he's like, we've been trying to find you because we want to do a UK tour. And we've done a UK tour before, but we want someone British. And we're struggling to find people, obviously, because it's a fucking weird show. So I was like, great. It was like, yeah, mate, we'll pay you £800 a week. All your expenses paid, travel, hotels, everything. You can go to Edinburgh Festival, UK tour, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, am I being groomed? I don't know. I was like, this is weird. So that's when I called my mum. I was like, Mum, what do I do? Do I do this or do I do that? And she's like, do the show. You'll love it. Just do the show.
Wow.
So I did it for 3
Most
years.
parents would have been like, no.
Yeah, my mum's just like, look, you are you. Just be you. They'd never stop me from being me.
Yeah,
they just allowed me to just be an idiot and discover myself.
So you did it for 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
What was that like, just as an experience?
It was mental. I was like 19, and like if you've ever been to the Edinburgh Festival, like, I've got loads of acts.
I had a show there for like 1 year. We had a full show there because originally we started, so we were there on the mile the whole lot. Yeah, it's great.
But it's going to be my unpatronising part. Was it a struggle to sell tickets? Were you out there every day flyering? And
we actually did pretty well. We actually sold out only anything but 2 shows we sold out. But yes, we were spending. We lost a lot of money. Selling out shows. Yeah. And it was like an absolute. I mean, it was every day. Yeah. And it was right. We were running Twitter ads to sell tickets. Yeah. Like we did well, and we were happy. We had a show based on World War II. It was a cool show. We had it kind of in the early days of my company. We toured the UK with it and did lots of different things. And we had a few different pools of it. Some certain people in the show, whatever. Yeah. So we like put everything behind it. Lost a shitload doing it. Yeah. So yes. Yeah. To answer your question, very hard, but we did it. Yeah. So this was the weird thing for me was that I walked in and turned up. They were like, here's the venue. It was the debating hall in Gilded Balloon, right? 400 people. And I was like, oh, cool. Here's your mansion on Dundas Street that you'll stay with the boys. There was like 3 of us, massive mansion. And I was like, right. Turned up, did the show, sold out every single night. But I didn't have to do anything. You know, no flyering, no advertising. The show was so massive that I just turned up. So I had all of these friends that were comedians, actors, everything, like grafting every... Yeah. I was like, I turn up at 10 o'clock. I like take my clothes off, put a pair of shoes on, wear a cape, turn up for 45 minutes an hour, and then just get fucking leathered until 6 in the morning, go home, sleep, wake up in the afternoon, and just repeated it. And that's where it got a bit reckless for me, because I'm quite like full on 100%, like, get all excited. Yeah. So like a month of Edinburgh, then into a UK tour where you're like, I don't have to think, do the show, then just get absolutely caned and then, you know, go to the next town, you know, sleep in the bus, like go to the next place. It was like... Flipping out.
Yeah. I say it wasn't like proper rock and roll, but it was like weird rock and roll.
But that for 3 years straight, that's a pretty intense...
Yeah.
Did you struggle with drinking?
I wouldn't say I struggled. I was always quite like... Because I was quite young, it was still kind of that new thing of like, I can get bad and wake up and just like be all right. Yeah. But it did get a bit weird at times.
Yeah, because I guess is that 5 shows a week? How many shows a week were you doing?
So yeah, we did basically 7 months on, and then we had a couple of months off, and then we went to Belgium once. It was kind of mad, and then we did the UK tour a couple of times. So the first 2 times was like sellout. It was like proper mad, like you're in the press everywhere. That's why I said it's weird that it's not anywhere. But we did like the Manchester Opera House, sold out for 2 nights, like 2,500 people. We did, think the Apollo is the other one in Manchester, again, sold out. Peterborough, like all of these places that were like massive 2,000 seater, 1,500 people venues, completely sold out.
What year is this? This period of time?
2006, 2007.
Wow, so it's not like social isn't even pumping this.
No.
It's literally full
Like Hipstermatic wasn't even out yet. You know, I remember getting Hipstermatic on the last tour and being like, this is cool. I was like, where'd you put them? On Instagram. What's Instagram? You know, it was weird. But yeah, we'd like, you know, as I said, my family was so loose with it. They came to like my birthday, like the shows, and they were sitting like the 5th row. And there was always these jokes. It was like, wow. And it was like someone would laugh, like a weird laugh. And you'd be like, mum's in the house. And it would get like a massive laugh. And I'd be like, no, seriously, my mum's there. And everyone would be like, the fuck? But yeah, it was weird. Like, and yeah.
Flipping out. And after 3 years, you wanted to move away from it.
Yeah,
Because you were like 21, 22 at this point?
Yeah, I call it penis politics, but basically the first 2 tours were massive sellouts. The second tour, or the third tour, sorry, when we did the UK, new production company, and they just didn't put any money behind it. There was a lot of stuff going on in Oz with the original guys that they didn't tell us what was going on. And
so they kept doing it while you were covering the UK. They were covering, still building the show.
Yeah. So they've been doing it for like 15 years before.
Wow.
And then it was massive. You know, on like, was it Letterman and all of that in the US, like on Broadway? It was massive.
Wow.
And then the UK tour hadn't been done in a while. So the first 2 tours were massive, changed production companies. And all of a sudden the shows were like 2,000 people venues, 200 seats. So we were doing shows and we were like, what's going on?
Flipping out.
And then they were like, oh yeah, the shows are starting to sell well now. So we were doing 6 shows a week, like Monday to Saturday. And then they started going, right, because the tour's picking up now, you're going to be doing double shows every night. It was
double shows.
It was the only year I had a contract which stipulated if we did a week and then more than 7 shows a week, every show they would pay us as an extra show.
Right.
So and then they went, we can't pay you. And I was like, well, I'm not fucking going on because my contract says this.
Yeah.
And that's where it got really bitter. Like the boys I was with, we were all like best mates.
Yeah.
And then it became like...
rough.
Yeah. Like you were finishing shows, going back to your hotel room, just sitting there like drinking on your own because you're like, everyone hated each other. And you were like, this is just not fun anymore.
No.
So yeah, we all binned it after the tour and went our separate ways. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you wanted to go back to food?
Yeah, so in those gaps, I was working back in kitchens and just...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was living in Epping at the time, and there was a place called the Clock Tower, and I went there and did a bit there, and then went back to the catering company and was just doing bits and pieces. Like, not that I was minted, but I didn't need money because I was making, you know... I was on 1,500 a week when I was doing the second tour at 19, but then I realised I had to pay tax on that.
2006 and 7 as well.
Yeah. Mum was like, you put money away for tax? And I was like, what's tax? No, don't worry about that. That caught up with me, but we'll be all right. So yeah, kind of went back, and then the last tour when it was all crumbling, that's when I went to Ashburn.
Yes.
And did a cooking course because I was like, fuck, I need to find something else.
Were you looking for stability then? Because I guess for 3 years you've been like having a great time and then not a good time and lots of chaos, right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of looking for a little bit of safety in some ways, right?
I was kind of like, what do I want to do? You know, I did the acting piece, and I was like, you know, mates that were struggling as actors, and I was like, I just want to find something that I can just get my teeth stuck into. Like I said, I think I was yearning for that career that my doctor mate was getting. You know, he had now done 3 years and was going into his 4th and 5th year where he was getting like becoming a GP and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I kind of want that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was annoyed at myself for not starting. So I was like, why have I not? If I spent the last 3 years, you know, in a kitchen, I'd probably be a better place now. So I was very resentful of all of that. But then I was like looking back and I was going, yeah, but none of them have like traveled around and got absolutely like wrecked for
that life
years.
Experience as well. Like even if you were making no money, it would have given you so much for what you do now as well. Like the ability to turn up on a set or you know, work in your studio by yourself and take your clothes off, you know, everything.
So complete lack of shame. Like I said, that's me. But it was like weird things, you know, like, oh, we up to tonight, Martyn? I was like, oh man, I'm just in a like the Loft Bar in Gilder Blue. I was like, having drinks with Tom Green, you know, when I was 19. You know, like, Daddy, do you want some sausages, Tom Green? He was going out with Drew Barrymore. I was literally just like, this is so weird. Yeah. And then like chatting with comedians like Stephen K. Amos and all of that. We're just like becoming mates.
Yeah.
They were not mates anymore because it was that very fickle, like you're in that zone, but it was so funny.
Yeah.
And then I look back on it and I'm like, fuck, all right. Yeah, it was a good time, but yeah. So I kind of had that yin and yang.
And then Ashburton, so was that you going, I'm going to go back into food?
That's my mum. It was like classic, like, yeah, I made a lot of money, spent all my money, and then my mum was like, right, you need a bit of stability.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did this 4-week cooking course down in Ashburn. And basically, yeah, you was there 5 days a week. And it was like, it was kind of pitched toward people that were wanted to be private chefs that knew how to cook, but needed to understand how a structure would work. So how to do mise en place, how the next day would work. Like, I'd worked in kitchens, but I'd never really worked in kitchens at the level we had to plan, think. It was like, you come in, do a job, great. But then when you step up a level and it's like, okay, you have to plan the menu, think about the orders, all that kind of stuff. So that's what Ashburton gave me, a bit more of that structure.
Was it exciting for you at the time going into that? Like, when you were going on that course and when you were doing things, were you like, oh, actually, I'm getting the bug back again?
A little bit, yeah. I was still a bit stupid because I was like, you know, I was still quite young, like 20, yeah, it must have been like 21, 22. And was kind of like, yeah, this is cool, but I know a lot of it because I've worked in kitchens. So I was never big-headed about it, but I was always a bit like, okay, like, is this
sort of
really
internal arrogance? And
yeah, is this going to put me where I want to be? I don't know. Is this just a waste of time? Should I just go in a kitchen? But then stuck it out and really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, then I basically did, like, this is, again, I don't think I even had an email address, but I like wrote 100 letters to restaurants, and I remember posting them by hand. Like, I'm sure there was email addresses back then. But I was like,
it's like 2010, right?
yeah, exactly. It was like 2024. But I was like sending letters.
Yeah.
And so I remember heard back from 2 places: Richard Corrigan's place in Soho, and then Andrew Edmonds, where I went to.
Yeah. Were you just looking to get into restaurants?
Yeah.
So you were just like, I need to just get back in a restaurant and settle up a little
bit. Yeah, and just sort of put the feelers out there, see how I felt, and like, you know, just go, right, let's get a full-time job because I'm 22, and then just go from there and see what happens. So yeah.
And walking back into the kitchen at Andrew Edmonds, what was that experience like? Was it a little bit like rusty? How are you approaching it?
Yeah, nerve-wracking.
Really?
I remember being like quite a competent cook. Like, I back then, I wouldn't say I know food inside out, but I knew how to chop quite well. I kind of had quite a good understanding. I wasn't stupid. I was quite intelligent in terms of like how a kitchen crafted. I was quite good with people, so I was like, that was all right. But as soon as you're like in somewhere, and like you see it on MasterChef, like MasterChef the Professional, you're like, make me a beurre blanc, and you're like, oh fuck, what is a beurre blanc? You know, instant, like, your brain
such
just
a
appears.
depth of knowledge as well for like proper kitchens, right? Like, it's intensity mixed with like a dictionary of all sorts.
Yeah. And you just end up doing stupid things. You're like, why did I do that? It's because like you were just worried about everything and everyone. But yeah, I had like an amazing time at Andrew Edmonds. Like, that's like my mate Bob. He hates me saying his name, but like Bob was just like, he worked at Morrow, and he was like the only chef that was someone that I looked at and went, wow, like,
really?
He's so good with flavors and his care and everything like that, and in a completely non-pretentious way. And there was other chefs that worked there that were just sort of like there going through the paces, and then there was like Bob that was like really sort of, you know, just had the time to show me and care. And you know, I took a lot from that, and that's where I suppose a lot of like my Middle Eastern influence comes from him, because he worked at Morrow. So a lot of the flavors and spices and sauces and cooking techniques, all of that, I'm like, just like always look back and I'm like, yeah.
And that rate of learning, like someone actually taking an interest in your career properly, that must have meant a lot to you at that age.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, because I took things on quite quickly, there was other chefs that we were working with who would, I say thick as shit, but they were so stupid that you could kind of tell that, you know, when it was a shift with me, everyone, the energy was up, and it was just like, Mike, you know, Martyn's here, he wants to learn, he's a laugh, he's a bit of a dick, like, we can all have fun, but we'll get our stuff done. Whereas like the other people, it was like, this is going to be a slog. Like, if you're doing a double shift with someone, you're like, oh man, we better get on. And yeah, I think with me and Bob, we just hit it off, and it was just like such a good camaraderie, and like I'd help him out in his section. It was such a small restaurant, and still is, that I'd be looking after all starters and sort of like cold parts. And then there would be a hot section. So there was no real, he was the head chef, but you weren't like a sous chef or commie. It was just like, you were just a chef. And if he was in the shit, I'd go over there and I'd be like, mate, what do you want me to do? And he would like, we'd all muck in and get involved. Whereas when you did shifts and you were like prepping and watching the other chefs, they would just sit there and do what they had to do. And he was just like, man, you're a little team. Like, muck in and get involved. So
that's mad. Was that, what would you reckon the biggest lesson working with Bob or Andrew Edmonds was?
What? Emotionally?
Just generally. Maybe. I guess like in those environments where like it's not the biggest job in the world
Yeah.
that you've had. Now you've done so much more than that, but it feels like one of those kind of pillars of your career. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds like just being a really strong team player and enjoying life is like a big lesson of that.
Again, like when I went in there, I was young, I was stupid, I was a bit naive, and like it wasn't like, you know, what people think, like you're drinking on the job, you're doing coke, you're like getting smashed up. It was none of that. It was all quite professional until after the shift, and then you were like allowed to let your hair down. But you know, I think there was, as soon as you stepped into that restaurant, it was like, okay, there's only, say, one person above me. If I prove myself, then it's quite an easy step to do the next job. Because that's why I'm willing to learn quite a lot. And I did a couple of like shifts when chefs were away that they kind of trusted me to run the kitchen. Wow. And that was amazing. They saw, oh, you can cook. And I was like, yeah, of course I can. Like, that's my fucking job. But like, you know, the other chefs that I was saying, they didn't have that. So that's why they never really wanted to trust me or them. And that's, again, why I left after like 3 and a bit years, 4 years. I was just like, none of them are leaving. There's no progression for me. I was asking, and the pay was just like jarring, you know, like I think I was on, oh man, it was so weird, like £250 a week or something stupid for like 5 shifts. So you'd do like maybe a double weekend, so Saturday and Sunday doubles. So that was your 4 done. And then you had 1 during the week, which could be a prep shift or an evening or whatever. It was £250 a week. It was so bad.
What year is this? That's like 2012. 2013.
So bad when things. Yeah, I must have been like 22, so 14 years ago. Yeah, so 2020, 21.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is a low pay for that.
really bad. And then the head chefs, they wouldn't get much more, maybe like 3, 4, you know, a week. But then they would get the trunk or the tips on top of that. And that could be like some serious money. Like, because it was a wine restaurant, you know, the amount of money that would go through that till, and you were like, whew. And I'd see it, like when I did the shift over the other side and I was running the shift, you know, an extra 150 quid a night. And you're like, shit, hang on.
Yeah.
How's this fair? You know, there's only 2 of us in the kitchen. So when I did my shift, I'm such like a team player. I like gave matey who was running the salad shift, I'll give him 30 quid. I'll give the KP 30 quid because there's only a team of 3 of us. And you keep 100 quid and you're like, it's pretty fair, you know. So as soon as I saw that and I was like, right, I need to be over here. How can I get over there? There's no opportunity. I was like, right, fine, I'm gone. And then I, handed my notice. And I was just like, everyone was, oh, it's so sad to see you go. And I was like, well, let me.
Were you sad to leave? Were you?
I was gutted. Yeah, I was gutted. And it was part of it because it was so small. I've been reading like Kitchen Confidential. I was watching a lot of Mind of a Chef, and you saw other kitchens, and you were like, oh, there could be something else. So I was like, that's when I went to Floridita, which was the next place, which was like big restaurant. Yeah, and I was like, oh, I want a bit of this.
Yeah. That wasn't the best experience.
No, awful. Absolutely.
Wasn't this like 300 covers a night?
So they had about 300 covers. So yeah, with big Cuban restaurants, they had Floridita, and I think it was called Momo or something. Right. Which was more of like the cocktail tapasy menu. And it was just nuts. Like the first trial shift I went in, one person got sacked who had been there for 3 years on the spot. And I was like, this is weird. Like,
they've been there for 3 years, and on the spot they're gone.
Yeah. Like, boom. And it was obviously like boiling over time. Sure. But I was just like, this isn't like fun. No. And it was the first real time that I experienced exec chef or head chef / exec, and then 2 sous chefs. And the hierarchy and the ego and the fuck.
Oh, you never had that in the other place before? Fine.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I was like, this is lovely. If you had an argument, you just chatted about it. No, was it? You were like, it's over and done with. I've got to work.
So you went into Floridita as a sous chef. What were you going to?
Very low, like commis chef.
Fine.
Yeah. So I was on cold and hot starters. No, hot starter. So I had 2 starters and 1 sort of like side dish, which was part of the tapas menu, which I could do. And I always remember it just like long galley kitchen and then like a circle fucking like window where the chef sat there on his laptop. Andy Rose, he was the head chef, don't know what he's doing now, and he used to just like stare through, came through, Martyn, lovely to have you here, blah 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 blah, how is everyone? Service started, mate, it was like that man was like a different person.
Really?
Yeah. Every like first night, put up this like poached egg on like a duck rillette, so kind of like shredded duck. Yeah. With these really shit like tomato petals and then some chives, and that was it. Fucking did exactly, like no joke, exactly how we wanted it. Put it on the pass, slung it back through. We're not your fucking shit restaurant around the corner. And I was like, I know we're not, mate. I was like, well, what do we need to do? And he was just like, this is shit. And I was like, I wasn't being gobby because I was like, this is a big environment. I was like, mate, this is exactly how you showed me. He was like, no, fucking, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, all right. So it is.
This is the first day.
First day. I was like, oh, I'll take it on my chin and sort of see how it goes. But
did that kind of throw your confidence of like your skill set, or did you always know? Because you've just done the training, you've been in other kitchens for a long time, you've got the experience, you know what it should be.
Yeah,
you're clearly good. Like at this stage, was it like throwing your mind a little bit to be like, maybe I'm not ready for these big boys or anything like that shit?
I think my skill set was like, you know, wasn't top notch. You know,
right.
You know, like now I tell everyone to taste. Maybe then I wasn't like, you know, in that space. I was like, fucking, let's just survive. Let's just get through this. It was just the instant sort of like personality clash of that huge kitchen environment where there was so many egos. And then you were just this guy that's just like, I'm here for a job. Like, this is my life. Like, I want to have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to take it seriously, but this is not cool. And it's sort of like, I was like, this is it. This is my life now. Like, you're getting I think you start the shift at 2 PM. You do your prep. Service will start around 6. You'll be all done by like 10:30, 11, cleaned down. And then you might have to stay to do the tapas menu, which ran for the cocktails into the evening. It's like 2, 3 in. So I'd be home by, 11, 12. Probably wouldn't go to bed until 1, 2. Wake up midday, have an hour to yourself, and then back in. And that was it. And I was just like, okay, did this for, 4 or 5 months, I think. And it was just like...
What made you break? What made you quit?
It all came to a head. No, I think it was. I always remember this shift so vividly.
It's the last one.
The last one, yeah. So as I said, I was on this section right next to the meat, and there was this amazing chef. I forget his name. It was Daniele or something. This Italian dude, really lovely. And they had Chateaubriand, which was one of the things, and they had suckling pig and all these kind of things. Lots of steaks, and the shift was chaotic. The 2 sous chefs over the other side, the head chef was still just wandering around like barking orders and all this kind of stuff, and it was fucking busy. And then they got rid of Daniele. They just went, right, fucking go home, you're shit, like you've done a couple of bad steaks, whatever, you're bad, get out. And they're like, Martyn, go jump on the steaks with like the guy who was doing the sides. And I was like, okay, cool, like what's going on? And they were like, well, we've got 3 Chateaubriands, always remember 3. And I said, can you double check these, because I've got orders over there. I was like, this one needs to be medium well. This one needs to be medium.
Cover for me. I need to go sort of mother.
Yeah. Can you just double check they're right while I let them rest, and then I'll come back? And they were like, yeah. Touched them all, fine. Sous chef, so they were fine. Right? So I go back to my section. Right, table 22, 3 Chateaubriands. I'm like, sweet. Come back over, slice them, and I'm like, oh fuck, they are not right. So I put them up, and I'm like, chef, these aren't right. And he's just like, you fucking this, blah 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 blah. And I was like, mate, you felt them as well, like.
It was the guy that checked them.
Yeah.
How'd it go you?
Yeah, 2 sous chefs. And I was just like, what? I don't get what we're going to achieve from you just having a pop at me. Like, what's the solution? He's like, well, fucking do them again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put them on and I'll come back. That's when I went to the walk-in, sat there and just, I got a cucumber. I remember always getting a cucumber. I sat down, flipped the crate over and was just like, really just sat there. Like I said earlier, I'm very black and white. And I was like, I don't need to be here. I was like, I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything. I'm not mates. I haven't been here long enough to really make any mates. I'm going to let you down. So I just went up to the sous chef and I went, I'm done. And he was like, what? I was like, I'm fucking going home. I don't like your attitude. And I didn't say it in a cocky way. I was literally just so matter of fact. I was like, fuck this. This is my life. Yeah. I don't want to do it. And he just left. And then I always remember 2 days later going like emailing the chef, like, oh fuck, are you going to pay me for my shifts are done? Yeah, got paid. And then that was it.
Did you ever go any of them again?
No. I was there for such a fleeting time, and it was such like lots of like trends in the right word. Like lots of people were leaving, lots of different shifts. Yeah. Didn't make any friends there. So
bloody hell. At that point, were you again? I keep on circling back to this idea that you're lost in life, but you're definitely not. But like for you, like just jumping out and you made the right decision, of course. But like you're still young, and you're still in Central. Well, you're in London in some capacities. Like, was there no fear there, kind of creeping in?
I think. Like I suppose at this point I was back in Epping, so luckily my nan moved into a home, so I was in her house. So I had
luckily it's the wrong words to use.
Yeah, but like luckily I was staying there, so I had very low rent, so I was paying like a couple of £100 a month because I was like great, but I was travelling in from Epping every day and all of this. So then I'd only just moved into a place in Tufnell Park because, again, I was like, I want to be a big boy. I'm 23 now. I was like, I want to live on my own. Moved into a shared accommodation, but, I was on my own. And, that was the point where I was like, oh, I have to find a job. But I've always been quite fortunate at, making connections and chatting to people and stuff. And when I moved into Tufnell Park, it just so happened that a new pub, Tufnell Park Tavern, had opened. And the chef was sitting outside having a cigarette, and I'd wandered past, and I was like, what's going on here? And they were like, oh, they were part of a chain, which I can't remember, but they were like, yeah, we're looking for chefs. What do you do? And I was like, I've just left my job. So, kind of walked into there, and that was it.
So what did you join there? Excuse me. What did you join there as?
It was kind of, again, it was a small team, so it was kind of like commie/sous.
Yeah.
So I said that I'd done, I knew what I was doing. I'd never had a sous chef role, but, I know what I'm doing. I know how to organise a kitchen. I know how to, do orders and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of my role. And they kind of, me and my friend Nick, who was there, he had worked at the Ivy, and we kind of shared sous chef roles and kind of just bridged that gap.
Yeah.
And you're basically like a head chef because she wasn't there 90% of the time. She would swan in, cause chaos, leave, and then we would look after the shift. So
you were getting that experience of actually running the ship.
Yeah. So it was there was days that we were there all day, and you were running everything. The cool thing is that the menus were written by someone else. They were changing every 2 weeks, but they were already written, already tested, and then you just came in, did the ordering, which was kind of already set up for you, and kind of just said, oh, how many do you want of this and what of that, and then you did the prep and went on from there. So.
Did you enjoy running the kitchen in that way, where you're not officially responsible in some capacities, but you have the luxuries and the kind of the opportunity to kind of flex the muscles?
Well, I think that was a nice thing. It was the opportunity to kind of go let's all muck in together. Yeah. And as I said, I'm such a people's person, and I always think that there's no reason for people to really hate me. I know that sounds quite big-headed, but I'm a bit of a twat sometimes, but I'm not that kind of person that would be quite jarring. So when we work in kitchens, I'm always like, I've got your back if you've got my back. There was pizza section, and if he got in the shit, I'd be over there, even if I had stuff going on, pinning out pizzas for him. So we were all you all get through this together. Otherwise, what's the point? So I was always a people's player. But it was a fun time, I suppose, in that place.
And you started doing a photography degree outside of
at the same time.
Really? Yeah. And why that? Was it trying to divert away from food?
Yeah.
Is that the plan?
I think so. Yeah. So my dad did photography, and then I think when I was in Australia, or when I was traveling around, my mate Stu was really good at photography, and I was like, wow, wouldn't this be cool if you could do it as a job? So I was like, let's do that, and then I'll be a fashion photographer. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, but I dug the creativity.
Yeah.
So I did a 3-year degree at London South Bank that was digital photography. So there's a lot of conceptual stuff.
Right. What do you mean by conceptual?
So it wasn't if you did the technical side of film photography, where it's you have to understand exposure and the dark room and all of this, which my dad did. It was very much just we're not going to teach you how to use a camera. We're going to teach you how to think conceptually about art or the photos that you're taking, which I was good at because I was a bit left field. And I always tell people about my dissertation because I thought it was really interesting. I still think it's interesting to this day. So it was so you had to write a dissertation, and I was very much down the line of people like Eloy, I can't remember his name now. But anyway, it was this thinking outside of the picture. So photography is the medium that says it doesn't lie. The photo tells the truth. Someone was but what if you stretch that? What if you have a cropped picture, which could be you here?
Yeah.
You look like a very professional person. And then there was a man with his dick out behind you, but you would crop that out, right? What if you extend every picture and that tells the truth?
Mm-hmm.
So I started taking all of these famous pictures, like Kevin Carter, when he shot the picture of the child that was being preyed on by the vulture that won the Pulitzer Prize. It's an incredible picture, and the story is this kid was dying, the vulture was preying on him. It's like that, and I was like, what if 2 meters out of shot was the aid station, and he was totally fine, and he was just playing, and then the aid was there. So it flipped the whole concept of everything, and my teacher was like, how are you thinking like this? I was like, I don't know, but this is how my brain works. So the creativity of that was so good for me.
Yeah.
And I said, everyone was young. I was 24 then.
Right.
So I was a bit more mature and was like, yeah.
And you were working at the same time?
Yeah.
So the intensity of that period of your life must have been quite a lot.
Yeah. So I was at Tufnell Park Tavern, And then I ended up leaving Tufnell Park. So I was like, the commute to work was bad. So I was doing a bit of contract catering. Through contract catering, I met a friend called Ant, who then said, I'm working at a cookery school. So that's when I started the cookery school, like year one of uni. And then I worked there full time throughout uni. So
teaching others how to cook.
Yeah.
Kind of doing what you did at the place where you went to learn.
Ashburn, no, so it was a little less serious. So the place I was at was called the Underground Cookery School, London Underground Cookery School. And you imagine like corporate fun day away. So we'd have like 20 people from like Deloitte, and they would come in, and then we'd teach them how to make a 3-course meal. So how to make pasta.
It was a little bit less serious.
Yeah. We basically just got hammered. We got like, it was free booze, like beers, wine, Prosecco, and then soft drinks. And you took them through like an hour and a half long cooking demo where they joined in, made pasta, like butchered a chicken, whatever, made a chocolate dessert, and then they sat down and we served them, but they just got
hilarious.
And then we joined in, obviously.
Amazing.
So
the photography stuff, I was just thinking about your dissertation when you were telling me about that, and it's actually quite like it's a definitely interesting way of thinking. I'm sure you went down a few road holes with it, but that kind of creative side, were you getting that from obviously the catering and the work and then the creative element? Because I've been through that journey myself, where thinking in the way that I think you think as well, you kind of, if you stay too structured and kind of like numbers or, you know, repetition, whatever, kind of fries the brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Were you getting that kind of like wild creativity from that kind of photography piece? And was that feeding back to you to go, maybe I'll go in this direction?
Yeah, I think it was a funny point, because again, when you're in restaurants and you're cooking the same menu and it's monotonous and you're doing the same thing over and over, there's no excitement. It's just a job. And that's what I found hard with kitchens. So when I started doing contract catering, you would go and do 3 days at, I don't know, Zafranos or Rocket Catering, and you spend 3 days doing weird jobs and like you see different things. And then the cookery school was different every day. You know, even though you were doing the same thing, it was like you were learning to deal with people. You know, like you would be dealing with like German bankers who don't give a fuck, but then you get them giving a fuck by the end. Yeah. Or you're doing a hen night where you've got like nudie waiters coming round, and like, you know, it was just like,
you're thinking they're your boys from back in the day.
Exactly. I used to do this. But, you know, I got my creativity from those times, you know, in cookery school, and the photography thing kind of like petered out and became like a bit of a means to an end, because it was quite a chill course. It was only like 1 or 2 days a week. And then there was a lot of like homework per se, like to do. But because I was a bit older, I was kind of just like quite organised, and I was like, right, fuck off. If I do my work now, I don't have to do anything on the course for the rest of the week or the rest of the month for my dissertation, you know. So
and then crack on.
Yeah.
And all of this led to the recipe development stuff, right? All of this led to what you spent quite a big proportion of your time doing. Yeah. And it's interesting what you're saying about the repetition in all the other food bits you've done, mixed with a bit of chaos of the show and then the theatre stuff and then the photography piece. Did all that kind of feed into how can I be more experimental? That's the word.
Experiential.
There you go. With food. Was that where you were trying to get to?
No, I think with like the cookery school, I was so happy there. And again, there was no worry about like moving up the ranks, because all of us were like, you know, we said it was like a Battersea Dogs Home for chefs. You know, we'd all been through time in kitchens and we hated it, and then we came there and was like, this is so chill. Like, I guess do an hour and a half work, like chatting, cooking, have a few beers, hang out with my best mates, and that was it. So I never really cared about leaving, but I was always going, right, what's next? Like, what can I do?
You didn't want to be there forever, respectfully.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, which is kind of like where it kind of like went off into the development stuff, was I got a bit chunky and a bit unhealthy. And I said I'd always been into my fitness, and people were like, what's happened to you, mate? Like, my hair was down to here. I was like getting quite chunky. I'd been smoking. I was doing silly things. And then
was that because to keep up with the work, or was that just because you were chilling?
Well, just because I think I've been at uni, and then like chefs notoriously don't really have breaks, and the only time you get a break is to go outside and have a cigarette. And then like, what are you doing at home? And they say, oh, that's fine. If you weren't smoking, I'm just having a break. Get back in there, mate. You know, but if you've got a cigarette in your hands, you're allowed a break.
That is actually hilarious.
So mad. So yeah, I kind of got a bit unhealthy. Yeah, and went through like some weird stuff with ex-girlfriends, and I was just like, I found myself being single for like the first time in quite a while.
Right.
And I was like, fuck this, Mark, you need to sort yourself out. So I started running, and then I was basically like Forrest Gump. It just escalated so quickly.
Did you get quite addicted to it?
Mate, it was bad.
Is that just to sorry to interrupt you, but is that a common theme? Do you get quite addicted to
I'm
stuff?
all in, 100% all in. Like very black and white. If I'm into something, I'm in. Like if I'm not, then I'm like that.
So you were running a lot.
Yeah. So I started running back and forward to work, which was like, I think it was 10K. So I'd like run into the city. So I was living down in Brockley at the time. So I'd run from Brockley to City Road, which was like, exactly 10K. And then I'd run.
Just going there?
Yeah. And then I'd do like a 15-hour shift and I'd like run back. And he just sort of like, that was over time. Like when I first started, I ran a 10K in like an hour and 10 minutes. And I was like smoking a fag halfway around. I was like, this is hard. And I was like, this is making it harder. But yeah, I just got really like obsessed. Started reading this book called Born to Run, which is all about like the barefoot running crew, Chris McDougall, all of that. And I went in. Like I think the timeline was I started running maybe March time, and by my birthday in November, I was running marathons just for a laugh, and then got to like the following year, and it was April time, so a year's worth of running and being good. And I did an ultra marathon, which was an 86 miler. And I remember waking up on my birthday. I wrote the blog for it. I remember sitting up on my birthday and going like, I need to do something. This company called Brutal Events popped up and said, we're looking for a blogger for our brutal run. I was like, yeah, great. I'll do this. Have you done an ultra marathon before? Nah, I'll be all right. Are you sure? Yeah, fine. So then that was like me locked in. So I went from 10K, ultra marathons, Ironmans, double Ironmans, cycle around England, just like,
Wow.
And then that paired with, doing recipe development. Obviously I started getting into fitness.
Yeah.
And then the fitness and the food. And then I did a course in like advanced nutrition, all about like macros and everything like that, and sports science and all that. And then that's when, the Bodycoach job came up through a mate. And then he was like, you should go for this. It's perfect for what you're doing at the minute. So,
was there ever a point, and this is one thing I always think about in the food space particularly, where like business and pleasure kind of mix, like your passions of running, your passions of sport, health, fitness, food, and then you're doing it all the time. Was there ever like a worry about getting all into that?
I think I was a little bit lost because I was so excited about what I was doing with the sports stuff.
Right.
And the food side of things wasn't complementing that. Like as a chef, I was cooking like, if you read Born to Run, like they were just eating beans and, chia seeds were like, they were cool before, they were getting cool then. So I was like chia seeds, honey, lime juice, water, like for breakfast, then go for a run. It was, I can't remember what they call it, but in the Tarahumara who were drinking it, they call it something. But I was like obsessed like that. So then I was looking for that collide. So I was like looking for like development roles. Like this was before like Fresh Fitness Food and all of that were even there. So I was like, fuck, surely there should be someone doing this, or like companies that are like doing healthy meals. And then, as I said, like, lo and behold, my mate's brother, who was a chef, he was doing development work.
Yeah.
And he was like, I've got a friend of a friend who set this business up. Do you want to get involved? And then,
so what did you do with the Bodycoach?
So initially I was brought in as my role sounds absolutely brilliant. I was called Nutritional Development Manager.
Well,
yeah. So I was like, yeah, if I can have that. And it was so funny. Like it was my first role where I'd got paid, and I was like, fucking hell, this is like adult money. I was on 40 grand a year, and I was like, this is what, as a salary. I was like, this is great.
Don't have to take your clothes off as well.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I don't even have to do that. And I was like, this is all right. This is like my first real job.
Yeah.
Like, and I remember taking the job, and it was just sort of, as you can imagine, I was just like basically developing recipes to a constraint. So it was like, all of the stuff that went on the plans was, balanced to a point of calories and macros and all of that. Although it was never really spoken about by Joe in terms of like how the plans worked. Yeah, it had to be, that's how it was.
Of course.
So I was writing a lot of recipes, had like an understanding of nutrition, but not really in developing recipes. So I was writing stuff out, and then like, this is when My Fitness Pal was probably like first started, and I was like taking me ages to like go, okay, so 200 grams of chicken. I was like, yeah, but that adds like 1 gram of carbohydrates. So I was just like, but does it exist in chicken? And I was just like really questioning myself. And I remember the first 3 recipes I sent over, I was like shitting myself. I was like, oh my God, what if I've made a complete fool of myself and gone like, oh yeah, this is a low fat, high carb dish. And then I've done the opposite. But then, managed to get it in, and then just sort of like blagging my way around for a bit. And then that was working from home. So I was just writing recipes, updating loads of information and all that kind of stuff.
And you hadn't started any of your social channels at this point?
No.
So what did you, I guess you must have seen the growth of having social channels and having content going out all the time.
It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, because this is I'm trying to do the math, but 2016, 2017?
Yeah, I'm always terrible with the numbers. But yeah, it was... So I remember Joe he was bigger on Twitter than he was on Instagram. He had 60,000 on Twitter.
Because he started on Vine? It was Vine. Was it Vine that he started first? Because I thought it was 15 seconds because of Vine was 15 seconds.
Yeah, right.
I feel like that. Because, then Instagram was...
But he was funny. He was funny on Twitter.
Yeah.
I remember going, my mate was like, you can go work for this guy. And he was going out to people in KFC. I was like, don't do it, you're going to get fat. And I was like, funny. This guy's got something. So it was like Twitter, and then Instagram was like growing at the point. And then I remember having calls with them, and it was just like, they were all over the shop, like big bougie hotels, winning awards left, right and centre. And I was like, what am I in? Like, this is mad. Like, I don't really know what I am. And it was like this close little circle.
Yeah. And you knew nothing really about social at this point.
No.
Like the impact of it and anything like that.
No, like nothing. I said, I had Hipstermatic and I had Instagram. And I always remember doing this weird thing of like going, if you post a picture on Instagram and then everyone clicks the hashtag and shares that picture to their 10 friends, then it kind of goes like that. And I remember getting like 500 likes on a picture because we were in this weird culty take a picture of a train, But then I never really understood it beyond that.
Yeah.
And then, so I was working there doing like recipe development. And then I think I was there for like a year and a half.
Right.
And there was the first time that I got like called into the office. I was seeing all this stuff on social media and I was working from home. And then it was like, they're all having fun in the office. And I was like, why am I not involved in this? I was just like in the background, just like tapping away. I think, got called into the office. And then that's when it all got like really weird for me because like Joe's management, a guy called John, who was like the business manager, kind of sat down with me on my first day and was just like, so what do you do? And I was like, I'm sorry? I was like, what do you do? I was like, mate, I've been here for a year and a half. Like, how long have you been here? It was like 6 months. And I was like, and you don't know what I do? I was like, this is weird. So... I was in the office, like big team, 30, 40 people. It like got a huge office in Richmond.
Yeah.
Like the running track down the middle, the gym and all of that. And then I quickly realised that I was not part of the team or not part of what they were really aspiring to do for the future. I just sort of like just tapped out quite quickly.
Yeah.
Because... they're all there sitting doing their thing and like rumours spread. It was like weird, it was like little gossip. It was like, oh, Martyn said this to me and Martyn said that. And I was just like, I just said he's a dick because, I didn't like what he did. But then they would all feed back and it all got weird.
I guess it's the first business where it's not a restaurant or a kitchen.
Yeah.
So it's a very new, like corporate-y, not corporate-y, but like small business.
HR. Yeah, HR. I wasn't Greg Wallace. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we're here now. That wasn't me. I was just sort of like going, saying things like, I don't really understand, how Joe's got here. Like, what, and they were like, oh, he said this about that. And I was like, oh, here we go. It's not.
I know you just like tapping out. I'm done with that.
Yeah, I ended up just doing quite the bare minimum. Like they had their little gym there, and then I was still doing loads of fitness. So I was like running from Hackney. It was a 15-mile run, Hackney to Richmond, there and back. I did it for a week. I got really broken, but I used to just run in the morning.
Yeah,
and then I used to just sit in the gym for an hour and just sort of like tootle around. No one questioned what I was doing because no one knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there and I was just like, this is kind of cool. So I'd be in the gym, like doing a workout. And everyone's like, what are you doing? And I was like, go for a workout. And I'd go for lunch and everyone was just like taking their 35-minute lunch breaks, eating my protein. And I was just like,
you're in Tortilla having a little break.
Yeah, exactly. It was lovely. Yeah. Well, burritos down on the corner next to Yo Sushi. Yeah, I loved it. I was there quite a lot. But yeah, it kind of got to a point, I suppose, where it all kind of come to a head, and it was my fault, and I don't really care now. But it was a lot of sort of like what do you call it, where contracts would come to an end, and they were kind of like going, okay, this is what your new pay is going to be, and all stuff like this. And these kids were like 20 grand a year, and I was saying to them, I was like, you need to be getting paid more, like, because your role is fundamental to this business. I wasn't like going behind anyone's back, but I was also like going, come on, like think about what you're doing, like think about your career, like yeah, you're 21, but like you need more money for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then I got called in for a meeting, and it was like, I've got the piece of paper, I love it, it's so fun, I wish I brought it with me. Basically sat down, and John, the manager guy, he went, so how's it going, Martyn? And I was fuming, and I was just like, you know what? I feel fucking underutilized. I was like, I'm a chef and I'm sitting there tapping into an Excel spreadsheet and writing recipes and not even cooking them, creating content, doing any of this. I was like, it's fucking wasted. Let me do something different. And he was like, oh, we're really sorry you feel like that. Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, cool. But like, what's going to happen? What's going to change? Like, is there anything going to happen? They were like, oh, we'll speak about this. Next day, called in, so Martyn, we're going to let you go. And I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, because everyone was going through redundancies and stuff, and the team was getting smaller. Yeah. And I read, you know, the classic 2-year mark. So I was like, if you get over 2 years, then they have to think about paying you redundancy. Before that, you just let you go. Yeah. Any time frames. So I was literally 2 weeks off 2 years, and then they were like, boom, like that. Nothing to do with Joe. No, he probably fed something in. There was quite a lot of stuff that was like, you look a bit like Joe. You should do what he does. And I think he overheard it a few times. But yeah. And then there was conversations. You just heard like his manager, Bev, you know, she would come up to me and be like, who owns a recipe? And I was like, no one. You can't own a burger recipe. She was like, all right, okay. And then because I'd written a lot of recipes, and it was like, who owns them? And all of a sudden I was like, this is getting weird.
Who does own them?
I don't know.
Like, isn't it just the work? Like I guess all recipes are copied and like
exactly.
Like,
this is what I just didn't understand. But
he's got thousands of cookbooks.
Yeah,
like, is it not the same stuff?
Oh, I don't know. And it's just like, you know, yeah, those kind of questions really started like seeding thoughts in my head prior to that conversation. I was just like, you know, and then people started coming in the office that were like other development chefs and like all this kind of stuff. And then the book deals came along, and I was quite like sort of pivotal in developing a lot of recipes, not for the books per se, but like for the company. Yeah. And then all of a sudden these books came out, and I was a bit like, what is my role? You know, I was literally so siloed at that business on my own in the corner of my mate.
Were you feeling again like a little bit, what am I gonna do? Because were you enjoying the recipe development stuff, generally speaking? Obviously you ended up doing quite like prescriptive kind of like data entry recipe development. Yeah. But like the earlier stages, were you starting to enjoy that?
Honestly, I was buzzing. Like, I'm such a creative person, and they were like, "We need 120 recipes." I was like, "No fucking worries. I'm your man." Like, you know, and you start having formulas in your head that kind of make it quite easy. You kind of go like, right, so there's chicken, which takes care of the protein, and then you go, right, your veg. How can you cook the veg differently? And then you go, there's your carbohydrates. How can you add flavor to that free without adding any more calories? Your spices, cooking techniques, you know, stocks, all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this is me. And I was in my element. And then it became then, like I was saying earlier, like once you've done all your work, and then there's more work because you have to do the data entry and the writing the recipes and all that kind of stuff. So it became a bit of a slog. Yeah. And like I'd met my partner, who's now my wife, and like when we were there, she went to Australia. And she was, remember like having FaceTimes, like pretty much my whole working day. I was just sitting under the office chair, just like, all right. She was like, you're not meant to be working. I was just like, there's no one here. No one gives a fuck what I'm doing. Like, what's the point?
It's pretty like a shit period, even as a member of the team, right? Because you've got passion, you've got, you know, energy, you love what you do. And like, kind of you sat there being a bit like, cool.
But that's the thing where I was like, I was quite at peace with how it came to an end. Yeah. I was fuming with the way it was kind of done because I was like, I've got so much to give, but they wouldn't let me because Joe was the face and Joe was the chef, the creative. And I was like, I don't have to be in front. Just let me work with him and let me like do shit with him because I can make amazing stuff. And they were just like, oh no, it's okay. You know, he films his own stuff on his phone. And I was just like, it's not that. It's like, imagine if I just knocked out like 4 weeks worth of recipes with him in a day. Yeah. And he could have the week off. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And they were like, they didn't get it. So I was just like, you know what?
Did you not want to leave on your own terms though? Like quit?
I did. Yeah. When they kind of like, oh, you're gone. I was like, fuck, I don't care.
Yeah. Done.
You know, done.
On to the next.
Yeah.
Because then you went straight to Switzerland pretty much?
Yeah. Yeah.
With your now wife?
Yeah. 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 So we had met. It was kind of quite weird. We had met and then we were in together like 3 months. And then I always remember sort of like going, you're right. She's like, oh, I'm going to Switzerland. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, my job that like they've got a place in Switzerland. I'm going, and she'd already made her mind up before we had met, right? So it was kind of not like she'd met me, and she's like, oh, nailed it. So I was like, oh, fuck, okay, and then and that's where it all kind of like aligned quite well because then the Bodycoach stuff came to an end. Yeah, she had moved, and I was at a point going, well, there's nothing keeping me in London. So I like messaged her and I was like, can I come out to Switzerland? She's like, well, if you want to. We've been together like 3 months. And she was like, yeah, if you want to. And I was like, okay. So yeah, like literally packed up my house.
Yeah.
And then, I say my house, my room I was renting. Packed that up and then moved to Switzerland, but like didn't have a visa. So I wasn't working. I was kind of like going out there for like 27 days and then coming back over the border, like go to Italy or flying back to England, you know, working for a company back at home and then sort of back.
And you were
back
just
and
doing
forward.
kind of contract work at this point.
Yeah, so there was someone that I knew that we had set up a sort of another sort of weight loss development app. And it kind of got to the point where there was like a lot of the groundwork was being done while I was away. So I was doing a lot of development, like freelancing, and then kind of coming back and forward, having meetings and all that kind of stuff. And then the app was, when I was there for 2 years, the app was like still being built and all of this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, I was in Switzerland for 2 years. And then I started doing my own stuff a little bit when we was out there.
Is that where you found the food waste thing when you were in Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
That's where you sort of discovered the crisis that was happening.
Yeah. So we pretty much, it was like the dreamy life, like every weekend. Like my wife, bless her, like she works her ass off, like Monday to Friday, left the house at 7:30, got back at 8. I was like a house husband, and then we'd hang out for a bit. And there was the weekends. We were like weekend warriors. We like lived for it. We were like Friday night, get in the car, give you a bottle of wine, I'll drive, and then we'll get to the mountains, and then we'll just have Saturday, Sunday in the mountains and just snowboard all day. Basically just saw like all of the Swiss and Austrian resorts. It was just a nuts. And so when we was out there, we had friends like out in Marytn that they got a mate called Vines. He's got a cafe called Satellite Coffee, best coffee in Marytn. Shout out, represent. And he was just like, you know, the season's getting shit. And I was just like, oh, mate, like, what is it? It was like the weather. And I was just like, you know, climate change. And I was like, oh, here we go.
I was going to say, where were you at this point? Were you pretty much like...
I was still doing like freelancey stuff.
in terms of the climate change?
Climate change.
Yeah, were you a bit like...
absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I was just like, I know people talk about it, but it's like far out there. It's like, what does it matter? Like the polar ice caps, like it's not... doesn't stick in my brain as a thing that goes, I should care about because it's so big.
And for you in the food space, you're like, well, what's I got to do with it?
Yeah.
I'm eating the cows, they're burping themselves type thing.
Exactly. Yeah. We can talk about cows burping because it's quite interesting. But then we got to this point, and he was telling me, and I was like, nah, mate. And I literally typed in climate change, food.
Yeah.
And honestly, you do it now. It's like food waste, 70% of all food waste from households. And I was like, this can't be right. Like, this is absolutely mental. So I kept like checking around RAP, who do all the statistics, like Fair Share, Felix Project, all of these numbers. I was like, oh my God, this is an actual thing. So I've got a friend who worked in an agency, and I said to him, I was like, is this like a thing? Like, what if I did meal plans that were like sustainably focused, but like driving people to sort of like cut out household food waste? And he was like, it's never been done. It's kind of genius. So I was like, all right. So that's when I started writing meal plans. Because everything I'd learned at the Bodycoach, I was like, right, I can do that. I know how the back end works. I could build my own Excel spreadsheet, which could pump out all of these recipes. I knew how to do recipe development. Yeah. I was like, this is going to be absolutely great. I knew
pure focus on sustainability as it's like, as how
creative cooking, sustainability,
nice.
How to shop, menu planning that I'd learned from restaurants. Yeah. I had the photography skills that I'd done my degree.
Man, that all came in, innit?
It was like, it was like this one moment. I was like, come on.
You had almost every skill, I guess, you need apart from like the overall knowledge. But I guess that's
business knowledge. Marketing. I was so I was like the recipe, like the menus were written in a way that was like what I saw from the Bodycoach, for example. He gave you, I don't know, 30 recipes. People could pick and choose the recipes they wanted, right? But at the end of the week, you could be left with peppers because you only needed 2 for this recipe and 4 for this recipe or whatever. So I started looking at it in a way that was like, okay, in restaurants, the easiest, most boring example, you have a fry up for breakfast, and then you have toad in the hole for lunch. You're using the sausages from breakfast to go in toad in the hole, and then you do a steak sandwich with bacon, so using the bacon from breakfast, and then you're doing poached eggs with a kedgeree, flow of ingredients. Yeah. So I was like, fuck.
Because theirs is financial, right? They don't want to lose the money. I guess it obviously becomes advanced, but like, there's like the financial thing.
In the door,
you
pay 150 quid. We don't care if you get to the end or not. We just need one transformation a month to make sure we know what we're doing. Congratulations. Well, I was like, if these people can change their lives and like cook, cut out food waste, lose weight, I was like, the nuts. I mean, Legon came, the Swedish philosophy, that name came in, and my business is Legon Fit Limited. So I was like, fitness. So I was like, if you eat too much, you get fat. If you don't eat enough, then you're going to be malnourished. But if you hit the sweet point of your goal, gaining muscle, losing fat, whatever, then you'll be fine. So I was like, sustainable meal plans where you get healthy.
Yeah.
But I was, and I can hold my hand up now, I was the archetypal wanker sustainability twat that was like going, yeah, guys, did you know there's X amount of food waste? And if you do this and do that and eat this and eat that, you'll save the world. And I look back now and thank God my mate Alex, who's got an agency, did this this deck for me, which I still have now. And he wrote this line, said, be a mate, not a wanker. And I was like, oh. And he was like, why are you called Legon Fit? You're a chef. And I was like, oh yeah. Marketing, right? So Legon Chef was born from that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like, be a mate. I was just like, all right, what would a mate wouldn't sit you down and go, oh, 4.4 million potatoes are wasted every day. He'll go, look, you twat, make a jacket potato and eat it. So I was like, then all of a sudden everything just like bubbled up and it just became, a brand that is now me calling people out and just going, eat the food you buy.
So when you're in Switzerland, you're building this kind of like data stack and you're doing the back end work, right?
Yeah.
You then came back to the UK and this is like 2019.
Yeah.
And then you started making content to market that offer, right?
So 2019, I was like, I launched the business in November. I was like, great. Had no following, had no mailing list. I didn't know what I was doing.
Did you have any socials?
Nothing. Because I was just like, I don't know what I was doing. I was like basically building the business to be like, I want a legit business that will make money away from socials because it's a lot like, that's a real business.
Yeah.
And then I launched it and then we had sort of contacts at Barry's boot camp and we were like, right, we can get in there. They've got like 30,000 people on their subscribers list. We'll push it out there. That's the business. Done. Did it. One person signed up and I was like, oh, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard stuff. Then we got round to March and the person I'd set the business up with, who was the contact at Barry's, was like, lockdown happened. He was like, this isn't going to work. And I was like, what do you mean it's not going to work? I was like, we just got to give it energy. Like, let's just go full steam. Everyone's at home. Everyone's going to be cooking. Let's just do it. And then he was like, oh, no, I've got other things to focus on. And fair enough, his life was way more chaotic than mine at the time.
I guess COVID is where everyone's priorities were just everywhere.
Yeah.
Stressful and trying to map out the future and all that jazz.
Exactly.
So you're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, well, I'd spent all this time building this business and it was like, it was there. Like, I'd like meticulously planned like the questionnaires that came in, went through into a type form, which fed into an Excel spreadsheet, which then like I could just press a button and it will churn out a meal plan. Still got the business. So if there's a PT out there that wants to do this, it's all there. And then I was like, yeah, fuck, how am I going to do this? And then another friend just said to me, why are you not doing videos? Like, you should do videos. And I took it the wrong way and started building an academy on a website that was teaching people how to cook, not on social media. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to build like this offline platform and all of this. So I spent most of lockdown just like trying to build the backbone of a business before even launching a business. So I was doing all this work, no money. And I was like, now I launch. But then no one wanted everything that I spent all this money on.
Yeah.
So it was, really painful. And then, then I was just like, okay, let's give this social media stuff a crack.
And at the start of this podcast, you said that you kind of started off on the wrong foot, not being yourself. So what was do you remember filming your first like proper video?
Yeah, bad. So bad. It was
there nerves for you? Because I guess at this point, it's not like the content was, you were riding on this working, you were still kind of like figuring it all out, so there wasn't the pressure to like want to make it work and want to be great. You were just doing it for doing it.
Yeah, I was doing it purely to drive people to the meal plan because I didn't understand how you made money off of social media. I didn't understand you could get brand deals or you could get paid for posting or all this kind of stuff. So that was never my intention. My intention was like, let's teach people how to dice an onion, how to peel a potato, I was like, people need to know this stuff because like I said, with the Joe Wicks thing is like, they had a meal plan, but the beginning bit was like, good, you got them in.
Yeah.
But then there was no care. There was no like, what if they can't cook? They can't do the meal plan.
Yeah.
So I was like, what if I teach people how to cook? Then they can do my meal plan, there's no stone unturned kind of thing. So I started doing that. And then I always remember I did a competition with Too Good To Go. And this is where I ended up getting my agent because I had 3,000 followers that were just like, I followed everyone, unfollowed, followed everyone, unfollowed. And I was like, this is working. And then you got banned. And I was like, great, this isn't working. And then I was looking at all food waste companies and I it was very narrow-minded of going like, if I'm doing food waste, I can only talk to food waste people. So I was looking at Too Good To Go, Olly, you know, Oddbox, all those kind of people. And I was like, this is limited. How am I meant to do work? Then Too Good To Go were like, let's do a competition together. And they were like just getting massive, you know, like 200,000 on Instagram, but like the app was only in the UK. And then they were like, should we do a competition? I was like, yeah, I'll buy everything. Like I bought all pans, everything, did this competition. Fucking my Instagram just went from like, I think it was like 2,500, maybe 3,000 to like over 10K. And I was like, this is it. Am I now a celebrity? Like, I don't know. And then I'd say 50% of them were bots and just disappeared.
Yeah.
But I was like, I need to get work. How do I fund, you know, my life? You know, I took a huge loan with Starling during lockdown. Did the classic, what's your projected earnings? And I was like, 250K, definitely. So they gave me 50 grand straight into my bank. And I was like, this is easy to make money. So I, because I obviously had the projected earnings of my meal plan saying that, you know, if I got, I don't know, 20,000 people through the door, then it's easy money. Mm-hmm. So, so I had this money during lockdown, which, you know, obviously we were raising our son and it was kind of like, okay, this took the pressure off. We had like mortgage holidays, so we didn't have any outgoings. And it helped me kind of go, okay, I can buy ingredients, I can, you know, stash a load and not think about it. But it's kind of given us that breathing space because it was stressful for everyone, obviously, and like super stressful for me as well.
Of course.
And then, then I was like, right, how do I get work? And then one of my friends was like, you need an agent, because my acting mates, agents get you work. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, again, blanket emails to agencies. And then my agent now took a punt on me. I had like 5,000 followers after all the bots left after the Too Good To Go thing. And I was like, I'm onto something. I genuinely believe that like food waste and like the way that I'm talking about it will pop off.
Yeah.
Like, I have a feeling. And they were like, yeah, cool. We'll sign you. Like, yeah, they take commission or whatever. There's no fee.
Yeah.
And they've stuck with me and I've stuck with them. It's been like, 3 and a bit years now. So mad.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
For you, like when it comes to the content side, I've not followed you for that long, I'll be honest. I saw your content, I think about a year ago, but mainly because I think I honestly was just like having a day. I love food, like personally. I find it my creativity thing outside this podcast, running a business, blah, blah, blah. Like I like food, I like to cook. Can't cook loads of stuff, cook the same stuff, like buying a few gadgets or something, whatever. So when I saw your stuff, I was like, it's high energy, it's ADHD as fuck. I'm locked in, right? You know, like that was my piece. Yeah. But I always think, because again, speaking to you today, like understanding how your brain might work, your energy can't be like that every single day.
No.
Is that one of the big struggles that is kind of like behind the scenes to kind of get through? Because I imagine there are some days where you've got a little one, you've got a wife, you've got businesses, you've got podcasts, you've got so much. Like, how do you keep that energy so high all the time? And does it drain?
I suppose it's always quite tricky. Like I've really stitched myself up with my content for the long game, because 1, I can't do it when I'm ill. 2, I can't do it when I'm hungover. And 3, I'm just
with a kid that must be very difficult. Being an ex-chef must be even harder.
And 7, but the thing with me is like if someone says, can you write me a recipe, I can do it, but it doesn't excite me. If someone says, can you develop me a recipe, and there's all these ingredients on the table, I am like I am in the videos, because I'm a hands-on, like creative, energetic person. So when I do my videos, nothing is planned. I'm like, I'm going to do egg fried rice. I know I've got the ingredients somewhere, but I'm just going to bumble around. Yeah. It may take me 20, 30 minutes to do the dish, and I just film it standing in front of me. But then my brain pops off. So when I'm like, oh, Stephen wouldn't say that, you know, because I'm like, fuck, like my mate Stephen's a vegan and he would be fucked off if I said this, and da-da-da-da. Yeah. So all of these little monologues and things that come across are just like me playing out my thought as I go.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I have the days of like, oh fuck, like it's mainly due to the fact that you know, I can bank a lot of content. Like if I'm always on, ADHD people are like hyper focused. So if I film a series, I film it like 3-4 days, and I could film like 10-15 videos. And then I know that I've got that time if, you know, I do need a bit of downtime or a bit of chill time or whatever. I leave things to the ultimate last minute. So it's just like, but with the business, there's lots of other things that are going on, you know, like mailing lists, YouTube, you know, like dealing with the podcast, you know, making all those other things happen. Like if I've got to do a cooking event, doing with the Felix project, and there's lots of stuff
going on,
always on.
And that kind of energy, like the Martyn energy, if you will, food waste generally, as we briefly touched on, like is pretty dry. Like in terms of people, you either come across as a warrior or you come across as boring and that kind of piece.
Yeah.
Do you think your energies allow people to actually want to care about what you talk about?
Yeah. I think what I've done is I've dumbed it down to a point that it's not stupid, but it's approachable and attainable. Like when people talk about food waste, they talk about like regenerative farming, sustainability, carbon emissions, the cows, all of this stuff. And for me, I care. Like I've worked in restaurants where there's, that's never a thing because that's your GP. Like wasting food is your money.
Yeah.
So I care, and it loses me. Whereas when my channel, I'm like, I want to talk to people that shop at Aldi that don't give a fuck about food waste. And they maybe are throwing away a potato or throwing away like a third of a loaf of bread because it's just gone a little bit hard.
Yeah.
But if you give them easy solutions, like just toast it, dry it out, and then just crumble it, and you got some breadcrumbs. It takes no time. Stick it in the freezer, forget about it. The easy wins, and that's where it is. But then people now, I'm not going to say any names because I'm a nice guy. People now are like jumping on the sustainability, food waste world, and then like giving these solutions or hacks or things that you may use like once in the blue moon. Like people are like, what do you do with your onion skins? I'm like, I stick them in the freezer and make a stock at a later date. Like I forget about them. What, you don't dye your clothes or do? I'm like, who the fuck is doing that? But people do videos on it because people are like, oh my God, that's the solution. And I'm like, you tell me every time that you make a roast dinner or you make a French onion soup, you're going to dye your clothes. Are you fucked? And it's a lot of that which like really grates me, that I'm just like, come on, like it annoys me on social media because people aren't real, and I think that's why people connect with me, because I am real. I drop shit on the floor, I cut my finger and I like stick a plaster on it, like I'm not precious about my content, but a lot of people are, and I think that's where people gravitate towards me, because they're like, one of us. It's one of us.
Do you, like with the food waste piece, like do you have a goal in mind with it? Of the impact you want to have?
I think the impact's very hard to read.
Yeah.
But I think all I want to have deep down is when someone goes to the bin, they hear my voice and they go, Martyn wouldn't do it. I've always wanted to develop a screaming bin of me just going, no, don't do it.
Because you have developed a few things like the tea towels and those areas and those like business sides of it. Do you enjoy that side?
It's my ADHD brain again. I get so excited. Like vinegar, I use vinegar in my cooking all the time, and it made sense to go, right, let's do vinegar. Yeah. And the designer I was working with, he was like, oh, you should do an apron. And I was like, no, I don't wear an apron. I'm not going to do a nice apron. Even though people will buy it, it's not me. Yeah. I was like, I use tea towels all the time. So I was like, that makes sense. I do enjoy it, but then there's not much to enjoy about it once the product's been developed, because I'm still doing all the posting, the packaging, taking the orders, all of that. It's just me.
I saw your stories today and you're like, we're out of stock, but I've got loads in the studio.
I just need to count them. Yeah, I just need to count them. But it's the thing, like I've got the studio in my house and everything's at the studio, and I'm like, I did count them the other day, but I didn't write it down. So I was like, I don't know how many I've got. But it's that kind of thing that, I'm fingers crossed, in the next 6 months, my wife will come over, and that's one thing we want to build out is the shop, because we're both into like lifestyle and fashion, all that kind of thing. And I'd love to have an online shop that we both work on, that, at some point we can have like a, what do they call it, a place that sends all your stuff for you.
Like a dispatch center.
Yeah, man, just get that out of my life. But I don't sell enough of it because, again, my marketing is awful, and I don't tell people that I've got this stuff. Like the other day, I'm doing this Christmas cookbook, the big Legon Sexy Christmas cookbook. And I went on TikTok live for an hour and a half and told people, and people bought it. And I was like, funny. I'm so, my wife was like, well, how do you sell so many? I was like, because I told people to fucking buy it. And then she was like, why don't you do that with your tea towels? I was like, that's a good idea.
Being a creator and a business owner and a chef and the whole piece, and the studio you mentioned, which I know is kind of you just causing chaos in there 5 days a week. The lonely parts for you, like being by yourself, must be a lot of it, and I massively struggle with that. Like I can't really be by myself. Like I drive myself a bit mad, and go kind of crazy. But for you, do you struggle with that piece as well, or do you find that kind of like where you can get on with the real work?
You can answer this one with a bit of ADHD wisdom for me. But is it one of those things where, like like I was saying, when you get so hyper focused that you end up sometimes needing these moments on your own just to sort of crack on and do the stuff. Like the content I create is just like me shouting at my phone. And if I have 2 hours, 3 hours because not because I'm a chef, but because I'm quite focused in that sense. I can have 7 or 8 different dishes going on at once and bounce from one to another. Why is your content so chaotic? Mate, I've got 7 dishes going on at once because I need to get this shit done.
Yeah.
So I'm like, get it nailed. But yeah, sometimes when I'm like in the studio and I'm like, I'm filming YouTube on my own. If you watch my YouTube, it's like there's an audience. And I'm like, I was like, did I say that? Is that me? Who am I chatting to?
Yeah.
But I think that's why I love the studio now, because there is a community there and there are like people. And I leave the door open once I've cooked my stuff and my job's done. Doors open and I'm like, send it in a WhatsApp group. Anyone want to come around for some food? And they all come round and it's nice. But yeah, I miss the kitchens. My one of my best mates, Neil, he now works back in a kitchen. He got out of it for ages and he's gone back to work in a cafe. And he's like, mate, the buzz, but it's on my back and my legs. I'm old. And I'm like, yeah.
I think for me it's always like I want to be like surrounded by a lot of people. I want to be left the fuck alone. Yeah. One or the other.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can go like a week of leave me alone or a year of leave me alone.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm like I just want people around at all times. I think that's the struggle I always find of like running my own thing, building my own things. Has always been that kind of balance. Like when I edit this podcast, because I still edit this.
Yeah.
Like I want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone really to talk to me.
Yeah.
But if I'm working on something for my main business, it's like I like people being around. I like that conversation. So it's always a slightly difficult balance in some ways. It's throws you around.
Exactly. And I think because like you see me, I'm quite a bubbly person, and like when I'm in a social situation, people were just like I'm getting excited.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm probably going to be like steaming at like 7 o'clock. But and people like get off my energy, and when I don't have that energy, even people on social media, they see it. They're like, "You all right?" And I'm like, "I'm just fucking knackered, man."
Yeah, strained.
Yeah, I just like what you get on me on social media, even on my stories, is like unfiltered me. Like, I don't do my hair and makeup and like go, "Oh, here's my lovely day." I'm like, man, my kid's just been ill for a week. Like
in the first video I saw, you had like kids sick on your t-shirts.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, something like that where you like just pointing out, and I was like, perfect. I mean.
Yeah. And people, social media as well. So like, a lot of people are like uber fake and portray these like mad, beautiful life. And like my life is lovely now because I've like grafted and we've got to a point. But I still have the shit stuff that everyone else has to do. I've got a kid and like, I may be in the studio filming and my wife messages me and is like, "Oh, are you getting Noah?" And I'm like, "No, I thought you were." Now I'm halfway through filming a video and then you're like, "Oh, for fuck." And things throw up and it's just life in it. But
totally. And like, if someone was to say how hard it was to be a creator and do what you're doing at the moment, how hard do you think it is compared to what you've done in the past?
Depends how organized you are. I've always wanted to, like I said earlier, I've always wanted to create a better life. Not a better life for my son. He's got a lovely life, but a life that we can enjoy ourselves. Like money brings you the options. If you want to go on holiday next week and go to Sweden to see, my wife's sister, we could do that because that's our life now. My wife not so much because she has to take time off of work, but if you're organized and you can, not get so consumed by doing everything on social media, you can have a nice life. Like if I just did TikTok and Instagram and didn't care about my mailing list, didn't care about YouTube, didn't care about, a podcast, didn't care about other endeavors.
Yeah.
You could have a nice time. I'm just going to make content for 2 channels, film it all in a week and have a month off. You could, but you've got to put the graft in to get to the bit with the followers because people don't give a fuck about you unless you have followers. And that's the sad, fickle thing about social media. If you want to make money, you have to have followers. Because like, talking transparently about financials, like when I was doing a job for it was Earth and Wheat, basically do wonky bread boxes. Right. I did a job back and I always remember looking, it was like 2021, just after lockdown. I got paid £250 for doing 4 reels. And I was like, Janine, I'm killing this. Next job was like £800 for 3. I was like, things are going up. Now, you know the kind of money that you can make and it's mental. Yeah. You sit there going, is this actually like real life job? But then with that, the biggest stuff of like going, a lot of money's coming in, a lot of money's going out, studio, editor, you've got your VAT bill coming out, your tax bill. And then you start going, oh.
It gets to that point where it's got slightly bigger that actually it kind of, the levels all do this. It's not just like, cool, we put the graft in and the good one does that, all the bars go up.
Yeah.
People often don't see that.
And I think that's where I'm kind of at now is like, people go, oh, you've got such a fun life of like creating content. And I'm like, I love it.
Yeah.
My food bill was about £2,500 a month plus. Yeah. if you think I've got to film, 3 or 4 YouTubes,
Yeah, I guess.
and then I may do like a whole roast dinner, or I may do, people want to see how you cook different steaks. You've got to buy like 4 or 5, 6 different steaks. And then you've got to do, okay, I'm posting probably 5 times a week on Instagram. So that's 20 recipes a month. So then you're not just going, I'm going to cook sustainably and go, I'm going to make one dish that will roll over into the next one. It's like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. The podcast we're cooking food for, it just escalates.
It's thick.
Yeah.
So what does the future look like for you? Is there some goals?
Oh, this is such a...
Going into 2025, I mean, I don't feel like you're a goal setter, right?
No.
As such. And I mean, you're definitely not a goal setter. But like for you, is there somewhere where you want to get to it?
Like I said earlier, main thing is family. Like me, my wife, she supported me when I was going through it. And I think if it could get to a point where, like I say to her now, I've got a lifestyle where I could switch off for a week and I could come back the following week and I could still be not relevant, but, I could still just carry on with work. And I want her to sort of see that from my side. Like, she's like, I have to go to work, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, whatever. And that's her life. And I'm like, our life could be me and you, working on stuff together, and building that. So I think I want the business to be us, our family. Not so much I want to post about my family, but, I want us to be together and have that ability. Because, I said we love the mountains, we love snowboarding, we love traveling. And I'm just like, imagine if we just did a series of, in Marytn for 6 months and we went snowboarding every single day and then we cooked in the chalet. Like, that could be our life. And I'm like, that's what I want us to sort of see, because that's what like the world is getting like now. You can have a bit of a freer life.
More like family experience as opposed to shed loads of cash.
Yeah. I mean, if I make enough money to like pay my rent and, my $2.5 grand food bill, then you're sweet. Yeah, then I'm sweet. But, I had big aspirations of my studio space becoming a place to, do workshops and, cook for people and all of that kind of stuff. But then life got so chaotic that I couldn't organise it myself. And I just, So,
journey.
Yeah, more charity work as well. Doing a lot of stuff with the Felix Project, which I love. And helping out these guys called Circles. It's alternative education places, farm out in Essex.
Amazing.
It's fucking nuts. Like, these kids go into school, maybe ADHD, autistic, on the spectrum, and school doesn't suit them. So therefore they kick off. They're not good kids. The school goes, they're tearaways. They're going to get expelled, blah, blah, blah. They don't get the education. So Circles basically take these kids, 2-3 times a week on this huge farm and give them like BTECs in like building, cooking.
That's mad.
It is so sick. So I'm going out there on the 20th of December, like going to cook them a massive Christmas dinner. I donated a load of cooking equipment, and it's just seeing those kids. I'm like, if my son was struggling at school, like I know I was because I was a twat, but if he was struggling and he didn't have anywhere to go, you would like, what do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
The wealthy can take him and homeschool him, cool. But like, what happens to these other kids that don't have any money and don't have any options?
100%.
So yeah.
Martyn, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure to chat to you, mate. It's been from penis politics to like whatever else is going on in Switzerland. It's been an absolute pleasure, and congrats on everything.
Thank you.
I mean, that was a good hour and a half of like hearing about a very short period of your life, and you've done so much. So, mate, thank you, and thanks for the content, because it brings joy to my days on a frequent basis. But best of luck with everything in the future, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much.